Hey followers, this is your boy, Movie Maker Doug55. Today I have two special guests with me today. One of them is Sam Greco, and the other one is my coach and mentor, Andy McPhee, who you now know about. Welcome, guys.
Hi there,
Hey,
and
Doug.
thanks, Doug, and thanks, Sam. Just a quick note, Sam is on today as one of Doug's special guests. Sam and me met many years ago. Oh, that was too many manys, Doug. I mean, wasn't it, Sam? We're not that old. We met a few years ago and were condemned. And it was such a great relationship meeting Sam on the Condemned, because through Sam I met Richard Norton, who was on our episode number 2, and a couple of other great friends. And Sam also has helped me. Like he mentored me, for a little bit of time when I was having a rough trot in my life. So Sam is just a very good friend and an amazing man. So Sam, we'd just like you to share a little bit about what this program's about, is how people got to where they are now and whatever adversities and hurdles and obstacles they went through in life to achieve what they wanted. Over to you, mate.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us, guys. Douglas, thank you, and Andy. Look, I mean, it's a very common question that I get asked all the time, and I thank you guys for asking it. And obviously, everyone shares a different story. But hey, nothing's easy. Growing up, in a tiny little neighbourhood or suburb of Brunswick where I grew up, pretty much it was a tough upbringing. You basically had to hold your own. Respect was earned; it wasn't given. But throughout my whole life, I was never gifted with talent in terms of what sport I was playing, or especially academically, I was never gifted like some of the other kids. I always had to work extremely hard and try and resource stuff elsewhere. I've got to say, look, the thing that really drove me as a kid was to be successful at whatever I did, even though I failed. It was sheer determination, it was persistence, and most of all, that fear of failure is what drove me to try and be successful in whatever I was doing, whether it was a school project, whether it was soccer, whether it was football, whether it was martial arts. It didn't really matter. And I've got to tell you this, and I state this nearly in every presentation that I do, I failed more times than I was successful. But that's what made my success so great when I did succeed. The fact that I didn't give up. I fought against adversity. I knew there was obstacles there in front of me. Sometimes I didn't know how to handle them. Sometimes I had to resource. Sometimes I asked friends. Sometimes I asked you, Andy, also for advice. You never know it all, And the thing is, over the years, knowing that, I had to really dig deep. I really had to dig deep to find myself, to find out exactly who I was. Was I going in the right direction? And sometimes I wasn't. I wasn't guided. I didn't have a mentor as a young kid. My parents, my father was my father. My father was never my friend. My father worked. My mum, used to help Dad with his books, and all that. She was a housewife. So I really didn't have that mentoring as a friend. And I really didn't have a close friend who would guide me. I had to find my own way. And that's what made me grow. It made me grow big shoulders and big chest and everything else. And that fear of failure was that thing that brought me to the forefront. And I knew that it was only a matter of time, that if I was persistent and determined in my life, that I'll eventually succeed. And that's exactly what happened through all my events. Life, schooling, even though I wasn't that great at academically, through my sport is where I succeeded. And then I got into a little bit of acting, But it's sheer persistence. It's about being that I'm a fighter, never giving up.
Yeah, I saw that you were in the Scooby Doo movie.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, but I like the original best. Scooby Dooby Doo, where are you?
Hey, Doug, this is a good opportunity for you to ask Sam some questions.
All righty, sure, be glad to. So, Sam, how did you get to where you are today? You're a martial artist, an actor, a heavyweight kickboxer, karate world champion, and even a soccer player. How did you do all that?
Well, as I mentioned in my brief spiel just before that, it was that I was relentless, and that fear of failure was the thing that drove me to succeed. And as I said to you, along the way, it was never a perfect journey for me. I fell over more times than I got up. They say if you fall over 8 times, you get up 9 times. And it's exactly what I was doing. I never said I knew it all. I went out of my out of my realm, my comfort zone to go out and learn, to ask for advice. Occasionally I went down, but it wasn't the end of the world. I just kept getting up, and doing what I had to do. So if it wasn't for my sheer determination, persistence, and that old fear of failure, I would have been where I am today. But that's why I am here talking to you today.
Wow, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting, man. And that's one of the points of our series is being relentless and unstoppable and creating a better future for yourself.
Of course. And being relentless is probably the key element. Just because someone says to you, you can't do it, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It doesn't mean that they're right. It's only an opinion.
Yeah.
They're not sitting inside your body, I always say, if someone ever said that to me, I'd always ask for constructive criticism rather than just criticism. Tell me how I can fix it. If you think I can't do it, tell me how I can do it better. I'm open to suggestions. So in saying that, surround yourself with great people.
Yeah, and a few years back when I was in the middle of a rough spot in my life, there were some instructors of mine from my high school that publicly predicted that I wouldn't have lasted a year in college. I've not only proven them wrong, but I'm only a couple courses away from my associate's degree.
That's what makes you such a great individual. The fact that you didn't give up, the fact that you didn't listen to what they were saying, and you had self-belief, and you got great people around you. You don't need 100 people around you. You need 2 or 3 that advise you in the right way, purely for you.
Yeah, and not only that, but I'm also a professional author. When I was in high school, I did NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month, and a lot of my classmates participated in it. The concept was to write a 50,000-word manuscript in only a single month. I was the only person to succeed in the goal and publish it. And it results in my screenplay, Mose and the Great Escape.
Fantastic.
That's
which
amazing,
is based on the biblical story of Moses.
Okay, Doug, that's a great achievement, and especially with your books now. Have you got a few more questions for Sam?
Yeah, for sure. Who inspired you to get into acting?
Oh God, as every young kid, first of all, I got to say, as every young kid growing up and watching great movies, everyone wants to be an actor. And but as much as I hate saying this, Andy, our good friend, I don't know, shall I mention his name? Our good friend Richard Norton gave me an opportunity back in the early 90s to feature in one of his movies, which was called Iron Fist at the time, or Under the Gun, I should say. And I worked alongside him, and sort of that was the start of my so-called acting career. So I've got to thank Richard Norton for giving me that opportunity, and also some great guidance through Andy McPhee also throughout the years.
Well, that's how we met a couple of years ago. I hadn't been to Australia for a long time, and I messaged Sam and said, I'm coming back to Australia to work on a TV series. I said, let's catch up. And Sammy said, yeah, no sweat. And the next day on set, I'm in the green room and Sam's sitting in there. And I thought, well, I must be special. She's just come in to see me. We didn't know we were on the same show together. So that was, and it was universally perfectly timed, because that was a part of my life which wasn't going real well. And we just started talking, and we spent the whole time in the green room. Sam was just mentoring me, advising me. And I'll tell you something he did say to me, and I only shared this with someone the other day. As Sam was talking to me, I'm going, yeah, no, I got it. And then about 3 minutes in, he goes, Andy, you've said yeah to everything I've said. He said, but I don't think you're yeah-in it. I don't think you're doing what you're saying you know you're doing. And I went, oh, yeah, I don't think I am. So just having someone pull you up on agreeing with something when you still repeated the same patterns for years. And that was actually a really big turning moment in my life to how it got me to where I am now. And I'll never forget that conversation,
And it's interesting you say that, Andy. I mentioned this to someone the other day. I said, you can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. And that's what life's about. You want to change, you've got to get out of your comfort zone, and you have to change. It's
Yeah.
okay to
And
fail in between. But, you know, I could live with failing, but I can't live with not trying.
yeah, so true, so true. Dougie, more questions, mate.
Yeah. How did you get your role in the live action Scooby Doo movie?
Well, I'd like to say it's because of my good looks, but I was wearing a mask in that movie, so that's out the window, straight out. No, look, I was fortunate enough. I was living in the United States during that time, and I just signed an agreement with WCW, which is known for World Championship Wrestling, and I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, and I got a phone call from the production team on Scooby Doo, and they asked me whether I knew Randy Savage. Randy Savage was on Spider-Man at the time in LA. And I said, look, I can get probably hold of him for you, but I know he's on the set of Spider-Man. They said, oh, we want him to audition for a part in Scooby Doo as a wrestler. And I said, okay, leave it with me. So I went off, tried to get hold of his management, and his management goes, look, irrespective, it's going to clash with Spider-Man, so we can't do it. So I went back to the production team back in Australia, and I just said to someone via phone, I said, look, he's not available. So they said, would you audition for it? I said, me? I said, oh, God, I've just signed a new deal with WCW. The fact that if I did get it, how was I supposed to leave, you know? But they said, look, why don't you try and audition for it? So sure enough, they sent me the dialogue and whatever else was in there, and I auditioned in one of the WCW studios and sent the tape off. Within 4 days, I had a response that I'd got the part. So now, yeah. So now I had to approach the president of WCW and tell him that what had happened. And I thought what I thought was going to be negative turned out to a big positive. I was due to be released on TV with WCW within the month, but the president said, look, we can put that on hold. You go and do whatever you have to do over in Australia. I knew I was going to be away for 3 months. They said, we'll release you, you know, when you come back. So they were pretty good about it. Very, very good about it. So off I went to Australia and started in Scooby Doo.
Oh,
So
wow,
it's a matter of an opportunity, you know. That's what they call the window of opportunities in life. Some people watch them go past, some people grab them, and off they go. And I ran with it.
To be honest, I should tell you this. In my music class in high school, there was a student that used advantage of the class to create a parody song. I don't remember what it was a parody of, but the song was titled "Let's Punch Scrappy Doo." It's because of the Scrappy Doo controversy.
Poor little Scrappy. Poor little Scrappy.
Okay, Dougie, you've got a few more questions?
Yeah. How did you get your role in the fantastic movie, The Condemned?
Well, I did. The way I got that was through just a casting agency. I was called up to cast for a role. And while I was casting for that role, as I was leaving the place, I got a phone call and they said, look, we'd like you to double one of the lead actors in The Condemned. So they sent me a small script, and I knew that Stone Cold Austin and Vinnie Jones was going to do the leads in this movie. And I thought, what a great opportunity. So that's how I got it, you know, and I sort of look like Stone Cold. I'm better looking, much better looking. I hope he's listening to this.
You look better.
I made him look good. Let me tell you. And that's where I met also Andy too, again on set.
Yeah, that's right. That was very cool. That was one of those moments in life where you meet someone and made really good friends on that. You know, it was fantastic doing that. Hey, Sammy, I got a question I want to sneak in before Doug's to keep on line with the purpose of the series. Was there any time at all in your career of the fighting, because you had a massive career, that you got to a moment in a fight where you thought it was over, and then bang, you got up and took it on, and
Yeah, look, I think the one that comes to mind right now was back in 1999. I fought a South African world champion by the name of Mike Bernardo. We'll call him the latent Mike Bernardo now because he died a few years back. But, there was a fight there. My fight, or that fight actually started, ironically started before I even got in the ring. And what I mean by that, in the preparation, the lead up to that fight, that world title was going to be fought in Japan. I hit a major hurdle pretty much 3 weeks before the event. My dad was admitted to hospital. And he had to undergo severe heart surgery, a quadruple bypass. Pretty much there and then when I found out my world title was obsolete, I didn't even think about it, you know. So I remember going to see Dad and going to see him in hospital literally 2 days before his operation. And here I am more worried about him. He's turned around and said to me, "How's your training going?" I said, "Dad, it's not going anywhere." I said, "Let's worry about you first. Let's get you over the line, and then I can always fight for a world title." I remember talking to my coach on the way to hospital, and he said to me, he says, "Let's not worry about the world title. We can fight for that anytime." And so, you know, it was quite interesting the lead up to that all this hard training I just put out the door. I thought, no, I'm not going anywhere until my dad's right. Family first, as my dad would always say. And I remember the day before the operation, I was in the room with Dad and I was holding his hand while he was lying in bed, just wishing him all the best. And I remember a priest walking in, and I was standing next to Mum. And I turned around to Mum, I said, "What's the priest doing here?" And Mum turns around and she says, "Oh, they come in to give the patient a blessing for the operation, and just in case something, you know, were to go wrong and it doesn't come out the other side." I mean, I've got to say, Douglas, and I've got to say, Andy, at that particular time was probably one of the worst times of my life. Just hearing that, I felt like punching the priest right in the mouth. I really did. Just the fact and the fear that the possibility of not seeing my dad ever again, you know, everything around me in life was just dead to me. It was just him. I was concentrating on him, as I was taught to. And I remember, you know, seeing Dad, and just before he went in, he said to me, "Son," he goes, "How's your training going?" I said, "Dad, it's not. I told you that before." I said, "Why don't we worry about you?" Anyway, he went off in the operation, and just before he went in, he goes, "Man, I'll see you on the other side." That were my dad's words. And I remember I waited at the hospital. Surgery was hours. And I remember seeing him in the ICU, and he looked like death warmed up. And it really made me evaluate my life. It really made me think about what life was about, you know, and what's it worth? Who are we? You know, what do we stand for? What do we want to represent in this world? And I didn't even think of my fight career at all. And I remember when he came to, the first thing he did, and he's not a religious man, my dad, he tried to pull the pipes, because he had pipes through his neck, through his mouth and everything else. He tried to pull them out. And to the moment they pulled him out, he goes, "Thank God." You know, that were his exact words. And when I got to talk to him, later on that evening, again, he asked me how my training was going for my world title fight, because he knew how much a world title fight it meant to me. But I just said to him, "It's off. It's not happening until you're all right." I went to see him the following day. He asked me it again. He was so persistent, so persistent. And I remember talking to my coach, and I said, "Dad really wants me to fight this world title." And he goes, "Is he okay?" I said, "Look, he's stable, but I don't feel comfortable leaving." He goes, "Well, let's not go." And about 5 days later, Dad said to me, he goes, "You've got to do me a favor." He says, "I want you to go. Go get what you dreamed of for your whole life." And with his blessing, I took the nod and I rang my coach. I said, "We're off." And he goes, "What do you mean we're off?" I said, "I'm going to do this, you know." And I remember getting on the plane and getting to Japan. We had 2 weeks to go. We settled in. I mean, everything was fantastic. I was fit. I was ready to go. I could have fought that day if I had to. The only thing that was sort of holding me back a little bit was my dad. But I was grateful I was able to talk to him over the phone. Anyway, in the lead up to the fight, my instructions were quite simple. Stick 1 or 2, 3 punches. Don't mix any more than 4 punches with this Mike Bernardo, because he's got a big right hand. And I remember on the day, I say this little prayer. I always say this little prayer before I step in the ring, which I did, and my dad was part of it. I said, "This one's for you." And I remember walking in, and my instructions by my trainer were quite simple. Now, Douglas and Andy, you've got to think of this. You walk out, there's nearly 100,000 people. Actually, there was 73,000 people that day. And everyone's chanting your name. They're either with you or they're not. Simple. I remember walking in center ring, and when I turned around, there was this ferocious beast on the opposite side. And he's the man I'm just about to lock horns with. He's fighting for the same title as I want, you know. And I remember giving the instructions back in the corner by my trainer. He goes, "Stick and move." He goes, let's feel him out for the first round. Don't mix any more than 4 punches. You got that, Sam? I said, yep, I got it. The bell went and off we went. Now this is a fight that I prepared nearly 3 months for. And this is what my whole career sort of embedded on, this world title that I really wanted. And within the first minute, things were going well. All of a sudden, I caught Mike with a 1-2, with a 2-punch combination. It felt so good. I threw a third, went to throw a fourth, I threw a 5th punch, and I got caught with the right hand on my chin. It sent me to the canvas. I was nearly out. At that particular time, my body was like lead. It was literally laying there on the canvas. My head could come up, but the rest of my body wouldn't. And I remember looking up slightly and I saw the silhouette, which was the referee. There was a light behind him. And all I could hear the referee was say, 1, 2. It was just like slow motion. It's like everyone was underwater. I was listening to through muffled ears. And I'm in my own head, I'm thinking, come on, man, you've got to get up. Now, I had the choice of staying down. I still would have got paid the same. But I got too much pay. I should find this dog, and this dog needs to go. And I remember through a piercing voice, through all the crowd that was there, was Sam, get up. It was my trainer. And I stood up on the count of 7, close to 8, and I was like a flag on a windy day. And the referee says to me, Sam, are you okay? And I've said, yes. Now, to this very day, I don't know any fighter when a referee asks, are you okay? He says, no, look, ref, I want to go home. I'm hurt. So, it's what fighters do. That's what we do. We're warriors. We're battlers. We go to war, And I remember saying, I'm okay. Now, I didn't know how long was left in the round, but he says, well, then fight. I had jelly legs. I'm telling you, I shouldn't have been there. But Mike comes straight at me. I threw a punch, went to throw a kick, and I fell over through jelly legs. And I remember the bell going. And Mike walked back to his corner. And I'll tell you how dazed I was. I walked back to a neutral corner. My trainer was left. I went right. And the referee's grabbed me, goes, no, you got to go the other way. So that sort of gave you an indication of how badly I was hurt. I remember walking back to the corner and my trainer was talking to me. And still to this very day, he says, for the first 20 seconds, he was looking at me in the eyes. He was talking to me. It was like talking to a blank canvas. Yeah. Until I finally snapped. And he says, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. He says, what were your instructions? So I repeated my instructions, what the instructions were supposed to be. He says, you've got to go out this second round. You've got to weather the storm. I want you to stick and move, get your legs back. We'll go to work the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. Don't worry. But I need you to weather the storm in the second. He was up on points. So I went out. I did exactly what he said. It was hard, but I did it. Came back after the second round. He goes, right, now it's time to go to work. He gave me my instructions. And as the bell was about to go, I was walking away and he goes, good luck. And as I walked past him, my trainer grabbed me by the wrist. He looked at me, pointed straight at my face, and he says, hey, Sam, your dad's depending on this. That's all he needed to say to me. I mean, I tear up right now as I talk to you, but that was my drive. That's my goddamn drive. Knowing where he was and the difference I could make. How proud would he be? And I went out and I absolutely tore Mike Bernardo a new backside. 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. I was hitting him with combinations that I wouldn't normally hit people. I was on fire. I knew at the end of that fight, when they called us in center ring, it was busted up. I looked fresh. And I knew that I'd won it. I really did. In my heart, in my gut, I knew that I'd won it. And I remember when the referee raised my hand and 70,000 people cheered, the first thing I said, thank you, Dad. So I found my why. I found my motive. I found my motivation. That was it. But that's through good communication with my team and myself. I could have easily given up. I could have easily not gone over there and fought the world title. I could have easily, and I still would have got paid the same. But
that's amazing, Sam. That's a really incredible story. And I think, like that just hits the whole purpose of this series is that you don't have to be like anybody else, like your story, and people go, I wish I was like that. You don't have to wish anything like that. You can be your own champion in your own ring, which could be a job you have that you're struggling with. But when you get a why and you get a purpose and not be held down by a circumstance or you know, an athlete falls with an injury, like how many times these athletes come back and they come back like on fire, man. You can do that as an ordinary person. Like Doug and myself probably wouldn't last 2 seconds in a ring, you know. If we were fighting each other, it might be different. But the thing is, Doug, you know, as much as that story is about a kid with autism, what he's achieved and not being able to fit into the workforce because of his high functioning, he's actually making a career. And I do fully believe that he's going to be a highly paid author the way it's going now, you know. And he made that happen, and he had a good support around him, but he made it happen.
You know, Doug, I've got to give credit where credit is due. I was actually watching a documentary on autism over the weekend with my wife. My wife teaches at school with autistic kids also. And I'm going to tell you this from the bottom of my heart. Highly intelligent people like yourself, you have got something special to offer the world that the normal individual such as myself or Andy hasn't.
Yeah,
I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. I had no idea. I had no idea. You know, it's not, you know, autism is not a disability. It's an ability, a great ability, you know, because you guys find out how to do it. As a normal human, so to speak, you know, who's functioning well, we get very complacent. You guys don't.
I
So
really
I take my hat off.
appreciate that.
I take my hat off.
Larry Underwood would say, we can be the kings and queens of anything if we believe.
You better believe it.
Yeah. It's just really cool to have the support of all these guests that are coming on from all different. Obviously, there's probably maybe 3 or 4 guys like yourself in the martial arts, but then there's other people that come on with other stories that, you know, weren't such happy journeys through their life. They've lost loved ones through, you know, circumstances that were happened at the drop of a hat. They had no idea, but they've still got through and carried on. It's like you said at the start, Sam, it's not easy. If anyone thinks there's any magic in becoming an actor or an athlete or an author or whatever you want to do in life, it's just not easy. It's just, there's no magic to it. The magic comes when you keep at it and then you achieve what you want. That's the magic, you know.
And what were you going to say before I mentioned the Carrie Underwood quote? What were you going to say, Sam?
My memory's not that good, mate. Yours is better than mine.
Yeah.
I remember, but no, I was basically saying that, you know, for you guys such as yourself, you know, what you've gone through, what you've been through, I treat it as a great ability rather than a disability. You can do things that I certainly can't, and that's the truth. That is the truth. I'm going to be honest with you. You know, from what I've seen, it's amazing. You guys have some natural knack that I'd have to work extremely hard and I'd probably still fail at it, you know? So I was saying to you before, I just want to take my hat off to you, and you just keep being driven by what makes you happy, but what makes you great.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate it. In fact, I wrote another screenplay that's the sequel to Mose and the Great Escape. And there's a character in the story that is disabled like me. It's not directly said what he has, but it's clear he has autism, you know? And
yeah, that's cool, Doug.
Ray Guns of Kronos, War on Claudiusville, Part 1, The New Heroes.
New Heroes. Good on
and
you.
I think, you know, with Doug, like he's writing these books in like 1 month, he wrote 520 pages. Man, that would take me a year to even get to something like that, like to write something.
I wouldn't know where to start.
I know, right? Well, look, Sammy, that's really great. Time's gone, but such a great story. And it's like just really, it's just powerful, you know, like I know that these will trigger somebody watching these somewhere to whatever circumstance they're dealing with life, to hear things like that, knowing that they seriously can get up and create what they want to create, but they do need a good little support team, people who are in the same mindset to keep you going. And if you don't know something, ask. You can't do it by yourself, like you said. So that's really good, Sammy. Doug, I'll let you take us out of this and give your farewells, and thanks, Sammy, for joining us, you know.
No, it was an absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us, Sam. And I'll try to watch the Scooby Doo movie at some point.
Just make sure you do on the good-looking mask.
Yep, I'll make sure I keep an eye out for you. So I want to thank both of my guests for joining me today. We really appreciate it. And everybody, please check out my 2019 work of literature. That's my biggest success story. From green flags to blue flags to the amazing comeback of an autistic spokesperson, which is top 15 in the United
You're
Kingdom.
you're an absolute champ. You are. You're a champion in your own right, Douglas. You've done some amazing things, and I think what you're doing is going to help a lot of other people.
Everybody, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Movie Maker Doug 55, and please share this video.